My name's Tyler, and until 3 months ago, I thought I had a pretty decent relationship with my mother. We weren't exactly close, she was always distant, a little cold, like hugging a stranger every Christmas. But I figured that's just how she was. Some people aren't the affectionate type. I never questioned it. That is, until the night of my sister's wedding. It was supposed to be a joyful night, full of dancing and champagne and toasts that made you cry a little. But somewhere between the second speech and the awkward bouquet toss, I overheard something that shattered everything. She was standing with my aunt and a family friend by the bar. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, I was just grabbing a drink. But then I heard her say it. Clearly. Coldly. Almost proudly. Tyler was just a mistake. I should have never had him. I froze. My hand was on the glass, but my fingers had gone numb. My heart dropped like it was made of lead. They laughed, like it was some sad little anecdote. She kept going. I only kept him because I was too afraid to get rid of him. But he's always been a burden. I didn't wait to hear more. I left the wedding. Quietly. No goodbyes. No explanation. And after that night, I disappeared. That I didn't just leave the wedding. I left everything. My apartment. Gone. I cancelled the lease the next morning. My job. I quit with no notice. I packed a bag, pulled what little cash I had from the bank, and got on the first bus heading west. I didn't tell a single soul where I was going. No texts. No calls. No notes. Just silence. For the first time in my life, I was free from her orbit, from her judgment, her disappointment, her quiet disdain she never bothered to hide. But I wasn't just running away. I was planning something. Something she wouldn't see coming. I spent the next few weeks in a small town by the mountains. I got a job at a hardware store. Rented a room above a diner. Kept to myself. And every night, I replayed her voice in my head, just a mistake. It lit a fire inside me. Not out of revenge. But something deeper, the need to become someone she couldn't ignore. Someone impossible to forget. Someone who didn't beg for her approval anymore. So I started writing. It began with journaling, just to let it out. But it turned into something bigger. A memoir, almost, not just about her, but about growing up unloved. Invisible. Like a ghost in your own house. I didn't know where it was heading yet. But deep down, I had a feeling. She'd regret every word. The writing consumed me. Every night after work, I'd sit by the window in that little rented room and just pour everything onto the page, memories I hadn't touched in years. The birthday parties she forgot. The bruises that weren't always accidents. The way she looked at my sister like she was a gift, and looked at me like I was a chore. It wasn't just therapy. It was transformation. I wasn't writing to heal. I was writing to tell the truth. After 3 months, I had nearly 70,000 words. Rough. Raw. But real. I sent it anonymously to a few publishers under the title The Ghost Son. I didn't expect much. But 2 weeks later, I got an email from a mid-sized publishing house. They were interested. Very interested. They called it haunting, gripping, and unflinching. They asked who I was. I refused to say. I didn't want fame. I wanted the story to speak for itself. The book deal was signed within days. And then something unexpected happened. They planned a nationwide release. It hit shelves under the pen name T. Cole. No photo. No interviews. Just the story, and a quiet dedication on the first page, for the child who was never wanted, and lived anyway. I didn't tell anyone. But word spread fast. Including to her that I didn't have to tell her. She found out on her own. It started with a phone call I didn't answer. Then another. Then 5 in one night. All from numbers I recognized, my cousin, my aunt, even my old high school friend I hadn't spoken to in years. The book had gone viral. A segment about it aired on local news. A stunning anonymous memoir titled, The Ghost Son, is shaking readers across the country with its brutal honesty about growing up in a home where love was unevenly handed out, or withheld entirely. People started putting the pieces together. The setting. The stories. The subtle details. It didn't take long before someone figured it out. That the cold, neglectful mother in the book was her. She couldn't deny it. And unlike me, she couldn't disappear. At first, she tried to brush it off. Told the family it was fiction, exaggerated, a bitter attack from a broken mind. But the more she pushed, the worse it got. Because people believed it. They remembered things. Whispers started swirling in the family. You know, I always wondered why he seemed so quiet. She was always nicer to Rachel than to Tyler. Maybe it wasn't just a story. She lost control of the narrative. The more she defended herself, the more they turned away. But the worst was still to come. Because soon, she tried to contact me. And I finally picked up the phone. Her voice on the other end of the line was trembling. Not angry. Not cold. Just, unsure. For the first time in my life, I heard uncertainty in her tone. Tyler, is it really you? I didn't say anything at first. I just let the silence speak. I read the book, she continued. Or at least, parts of it. People have been calling me non-stop. Asking questions. Judging me. Still, I stayed quiet. You made me out to be some kind of monster, she snapped suddenly, her voice rising. How could you do that to your own mother? There it was. The guilt trip. The switch from victim to villain was so fast, it almost made me laugh. But I didn't. I just said, I didn't make you anything. You did that yourself. She paused. I could hear her breathing, sharp, panicked. You don't know what it was like for me. I was alone. Your father left. I didn't ask for 2 kids. You didn't ask for me, I cut in. Yeah. I heard you say that loud and clear at Rachel's wedding. Silence. You were never supposed to hear that, she said quietly. But I did. Another pause. Longer this time. Then, what do you want from me? That question hung in the air. And when I answered, it wasn't what she expected. Nothing. That's the difference between us. You needed to be seen. I just needed to be free. Then I hung up. After that call, she never phoned again. Not once. But I kept hearing about her, through whispers, through social media posts, through cousins who couldn't help but mention the fallout. She stopped going to church. Stopped hosting holidays. People noticed her absence. Some pitied her. Others didn't. My sister Rachel reached out a week later. She didn't defend Mom. Not this time. Ty. I didn't know. Not all of it. Her message was short. Honest. I respected that. We met up quietly, no big reunion, no tears. Just 2 adults sitting across from each other, finally talking without pretending. She admitted things I hadn't known. That our mother made her promise never to mention certain things I'd gone through. That she was told I was fragile and difficult, and that it was best not to coddle me. That even as a kid, Rachel had always felt a strange pressure to be perfect, like her value had to cancel out my existence. We weren't enemies. We were both victims of the same house. Rachel cried when she said that. I didn't. I had no tears left for the past. But something unspoken passed between us, the start of something better. Maybe even healing. Meanwhile, the book climbed bestseller lists. It wasn't just a memoir anymore, it had become a movement. People messaged me from across the world, "Your story felt like mine." I thought I was alone. "Thank you for giving a voice to kids who were treated like shadows." I never gave interviews. I didn't need the spotlight. Because I'd already done what I came to do. And she would live with it. Months passed. The book stayed on shelves. Book clubs dissected it. Therapists recommended it. Universities began adding it to their psychology and creative writing curriculums. It wasn't just a personal release anymore, it had become part of a conversation much bigger than me. But I stayed anonymous. I still lived in the quiet mountain town. Still worked part-time at the hardware store. Still wrote in the evenings, though now it was fiction. Invented worlds. Characters who found hope. And I started to feel something I never thought I would. Peace. And then, one fall afternoon, I got a letter. Not an email. Not a DM. A real, handwritten letter. From her. I hesitated before opening it. My hands actually shook. I wasn't sure if I was ready for another guilt trip, another manipulation. But it wasn't that. Not exactly. It was short. Barely a page. "Tyler, I don't expect forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I read the book twice now. Not to argue, not to find holes, but to understand. I never wanted to believe I was capable of what you wrote. But I was. I am. I don't know how to be anything else but sorry. And I know that isn't enough. Your absence has made me face myself in ways I never dared before. I've lost everything, and maybe I should. But I just wanted you to know. I see it now. I see you now." There was no return address. Just her name. For the first time in my life, she signed something with love. But I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. I just folded the letter and placed it in a drawer, right next to the first draft of the book. Because I didn't write it to break her. I wrote it to rebuild myself. A year after The Ghost Sun was published, I stood at the back of a bookstore in Portland. They were hosting a panel on healing through narrative. I wasn't on the guest list. No one knew who I was. I was just watching. Listening. One of the panelists, a young woman in her 20s, was talking about the book. "I read it at the lowest point in my life," she said. "I thought being unwanted made me worthless. But this story showed me that survival isn't just possible, it can be powerful." The room was still. No phones. No coughing. Just silence, heavy with emotion. She added, "I don't know who the author is. But wherever they are, I hope they know they saved people." And in that moment, I felt something shift inside me. For so long, I had been chasing one thing, acknowledgement. Maybe not from my mother, but from the world. From someone. And here it was. Not fame. Not revenge. Legacy. I walked out quietly, unnoticed, just like I'd walked away from my past. Except now, I wasn't disappearing out of pain. I was stepping forward with purpose. No longer a ghost. But a voice. And she, the woman who once called me a mistake, would have to live knowing the story she tried to bury, was now immortal. A few weeks after the bookstore event, I got an unexpected email. It was from a woman named Elise, a therapist based out of Chicago. She introduced herself kindly, respectfully, and then got straight to the point. "I work with teens who come from fractured, emotionally abusive homes. Many of them don't trust adults. But your book, The Ghost Sun, broke through. One of my students told me, he wrote what I couldn't say." She wasn't asking for anything. She just wanted me to know the ripple effect hadn't stopped. That my words had become more than therapy for myself, they had become survival for others. But something else in her message stood out. At the bottom, almost as a footnote, she added, "Also, I believe your mother has been attending group sessions at a nearby trauma center." Quietly. No attention. Just, trying. I stared at the screen for a long time. She hadn't reached out again. She didn't beg for forgiveness. Didn't send another letter. But now, for the first time ever, she was doing the one thing I never thought she would, looking inward. Taking responsibility. I didn't know what to feel. Forgiveness wasn't something I owed her. But maybe distance had done what shouting never could. I wasn't sure if I would ever call her. But I knew one thing, I didn't hate her anymore. I didn't need to. She had to carry her own shame. Her own undoing. And she would live with the knowledge that the son she once called a mistake, became the one voice she couldn't silence. It's been 2 years since I vanished. 2 years since I walked away from the woman who gave me life but never gave me love. I live in a small coastal town now. Quiet. Peaceful. I teach creative writing at a local community center. No one here knows I'm T. Cole. They just know me as Mr. Tyler, the guy who drinks too much coffee and always tells his students, "Your voice matters." Even if no one ever told you that. Every now and then, someone leaves a copy of The Ghost Sun on my desk. With notes. Bookmarks. Tears in the margins. They never ask me to sign it. They just say thank you. That's enough. I still get letters. Messages. From people who grew up like me, discarded, dismissed, unseen. Some are angry. Some are healing. Some are just beginning their journey. But they're all searching for the same thing, proof that they weren't the problem. Proof that they were never the mistake. One evening, I received a small brown package. No return label. Inside was a worn copy of The Ghost Sun. The same one I'd left on my mother's doorstep months ago. There was a post-it stuck to the inside cover. I read it again. This time, I didn't make excuses. I just cried. "I'm sorry. Mom, that was it." No grand apology. No promises. Just truth. I didn't write back. I didn't need to. Because my story was no longer about her. It was mine now. And I had finally learned something she never could, that being unwanted doesn't make you worthless. It just means your origin was broken. Not your destiny. Months passed. Life settled into a rhythm I never thought I'd know, quiet, steady, mine. No more looking over my shoulder. No more waiting for validation that never came. My story was out there. My voice had been heard. But one crisp November morning, something unexpected happened. A car pulled into the parking lot outside the community center. I was in the middle of a writing workshop, a group of young adults scribbling their thoughts into worn notebooks. I glanced out the window casually, then froze. It was her. Older. Smaller than I remembered. Dressed plainly, with a scarf wrapped around her neck like she was trying to disappear inside it. She didn't come inside. She just stood there. Waiting. For what, I didn't know. My heart pounded. My hands trembled. A dozen thoughts shot through my head. Ignore her. Walk away. She doesn't deserve a second of your peace. But instead, I excused myself and stepped outside. We stood there, maybe 6 feet apart. Neither of us said a word. And then, for the first time in my entire life, my mother looked me in the eyes without flinching. "I had to see you," she said softly. "Not to fix anything. Not to ask. Just to see that you're real. That you're okay." I didn't answer. She nodded as if that silence was the answer. "You look like him, you know," she whispered. "Your father. But stronger." That surprised me. She'd never mentioned him like that before. Never kindly. Never without bitterness. She swallowed hard. Looked down. I don't expect forgiveness. I know I broke something in you. But I'm trying now. With help. With honesty. I looked at her. For the first time, I didn't see the woman who ruined my childhood. I saw a woman who was broken, too. Not as an excuse, but as a truth. I'm not here to hate you, I finally said. But I don't owe you anything. I built something from the pain. I built me. You can't take that from me. She nodded again. Slowly. Tearfully. And then she left. No hugs. No dramatic closure. Just understanding. Sometimes, that's enough. Sometimes, peace isn't a moment. It's a boundary. A year after that quiet meeting in the parking lot, I published a second book. Not a memoir this time, a novel. It followed a fictional boy, unwanted by his family, who built a life out of scraps, who turned silence into power, and pain into purpose. It wasn't my story, not exactly. But it carried the same heartbeat. This time, I put my real name on the cover, Tyler Cole. I was no longer hiding. And to my surprise, the world welcomed me. Interviews came in. Invitations. Book tours. Panels. But I didn't take most of them. I chose carefully. I showed up only where the conversation felt real, at schools, shelters, therapy groups. Places where kids like me sat in quiet corners, wondering if they mattered. I looked them in the eyes and told them, you're not a mistake. The people who didn't see your worth. That's their flaw. Not yours. One evening, during a book signing, a woman approached with a teenage boy at her side. She held a copy of The Ghost Son, battered and taped together at the spine. This book saved my son's life, she said, voice shaking. It helped me understand things I never saw before. It helped him speak. Thank you. I looked at the boy. He didn't say anything. But his eyes told me everything. In that moment, I knew. I hadn't just escaped the shadows of my past. I'd turned them into light for someone else. My mother never contacted me again after that day. I heard through Rachel that she stayed in therapy. That she moved to a smaller place. That she began volunteering with single mothers, quietly, anonymously. Maybe that was her penance. Maybe it wasn't. But I no longer carried the weight of needing to know. Because I had done what she never could. I broke the cycle. And I wrote the ending myself.